and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Garden Roundtable. Well, the moment that we've been waiting for has happened, or rather is going to happen. We are nearly in touch with at least two vaccines in India. There is, of course, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine and also the Covaxin rolled out by Bharat Biotech. How effective are these vaccines? We've heard the controversy, also the clearances that were given to Bharat Biotech without the phase 3 trials. What does this mean? Does it mean that I'm told that they are safe, but are they efficient? That's the question that I'm going to be asking my panel of experts. And also I'm going to be asking them which vaccine would they be taking? Because don't forget, first in the line are really our health workers and doctors. So without the total data coming in, are they confident of the safety and the efficacy of the vaccines that are there on the table for India? Joining me on the roundtable is Dr. Romel Tikku. He's an associate associate director at the Internal Medicine at Max. Dr. Atul Kakkar, he's the vice chairman, Department of Internal Medicine at Sri Sir Gangaram Hospital. And Dr. Professor G.C. Khilnani, he was formerly head of the pulmonary department at AIIMS, and currently he's the chairman at PSRI Institute. Dr. Tikku, I'll begin with you first. I've seen you a lot of, you've been doing the TV rounds, so now I guess you know the drill by now. So my first question really is the pros and cons of the two vaccines that are there on the table for India.
Well, I'll begin by saying that it's a big thing for India that instead of one, we have two vaccines now. And normally it takes like 10, 15 years to develop a vaccine. And in less than 1 year, instead of one, we have two vaccines. And both are made in India. In fact, one is totally indigenous, the Covaxin. And as far as our discussion earlier, the ones which we had, it was always going to be Covishield, our best bet against the pandemic, because the trials were done here, the manufacturing had already done. But then Covaxin is also a very good vaccine. Yes, they're going through the phase 3 trials for which the data we'll have later. But they have been given emergency use approval based on the situation that we are in, the pandemic right now. And they've used the immunogenicity data of phase 2 trials as surrogate for efficacy. And they've also seen that in animal trials, it's efficacious. So we can't really say that we have no data and why they have given approval. And none of these vaccines world over, the ones which have been given approval, it's not a normal authorization. It's all emergency use because of the pandemic. Coming to these two vaccines now, and Covishield, there are a lot of similarities between the two. Covishield actually has been developed by Oxford in collaboration with AstraZeneca, and Serum Institute is doing the bridge trial here, and they're manufacturing it here. And the Covaxin is manufactured by Bharat Biotech in collaboration with ICMR. So, but the mechanism is different. They use a viral vector, Covishield, and here we are using an inactivated virus. Most of the vaccines in India are inactivated vaccines. And while as safety and immunogenicity is concerned, there's enough data. The trials for Covishield were done abroad, even in India, the bridge trial, and even for Covaxin. They are safe. There are no major safety concerns, and immunogenicity is also very good. As far as efficacy is concerned, the trials which were done abroad, Brazil, UK, South Africa, they show about 70% efficacy for Covishield, and even the bridge trial says that. And for Covaxin, as I said earlier, they've gone by the data of the phase 1, phase 2 immunogenicity data. And that's why they've given the emergency restricted use approval. But I don't think that vaccine will be the first one which will be used, because we have already enough stockpile of the Covishield. And we have actually 50 million doses, and which will be used initially in the priority population. But we can also bank on the other vaccine. That's also a good vaccine. That's not water. Enough data will come later on. 26,000 participants are there, and the trial is going on. In some time, we'll have the data for that as well. And I'm sure it will be more than 50%. Why there is so much of skepticism and why people are so apprehensive, I don't understand, because safety is a major concern. Safety is not a concern in these two vaccines. I would understand if you're worried about safety. And efficacy, anyway, we'll have the data soon. But for Covishield, the data is there, out in the open, 70%. And cost is not an issue with both the vaccines. In fact, the AstraZeneca Serum Institute vaccine will cost the government, I think, 200 rupees initially. Commercially, they plan to sell it for 1,000 rupees later. Covaxin will also be less than 500. Storage is not an issue. Both the vaccine can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees, which is normal for any vaccine. Most of the vaccines in India are stored at this temperature. And manufacturing is not an issue, transportation, cold storage. So I think both vaccines are good enough for a population of 1.3 billion people. You can't be banking on one vaccine. You need at least 2-3 vaccines. Right now we have 2, and at some point I'm sure we'll have enough data on Covaxin and we'll start inoculating that also.
You have no apprehensions of taking either one?
Not at all. Whichever one is approved, I'll be the first person. I can volunteer to be the first person to take it. I don't have any qualms in saying that. So, and in the remotest corners of India, in the small villages, towns, I mean, you can't give Oxford, you can't send Oxford vaccine everywhere. You need the Covaxin, indigenous vaccine. Manufacturing is not an issue. Cost is not an issue. So I don't think anyone should have an apprehension, least of all doctors who know about the safety, efficacy. They read about it. They are well versed.
Dr. Khilani, any apprehensions about the efficacy and the safety? While reading a paper that you had said that where you actually liken this to the influenza vaccine, where you said in the influenza vaccine the efficacy is 59%. So as compared to the figures for COVID, you are pretty reassured. Am I right?
And actually, I had written, yes, that's right, and posted it. Influenza has a 59% efficacy, but also influenza, the mortality is not as bad as COVID vaccine. So, influenza is selectively given to the people who are susceptible and, elderly and so on and so forth. But talking about the efficacy of the vaccine, whatever trials have come, they are very encouraging. Like the latest trial which has come in with the Moderna vaccine, where the healthcare workers were followed up. Half the people got Moderna vaccine and half the people got placebo. And there were 185 cases of COVID infection in the placebo group as compared to the 11 cases in the vaccine group. And so with the efficacy of as much as 95% approximately. And same thing was true with Pfizer vaccine also. And as we have just heard that the Astra vaccine or Covishield vaccine has an efficacy of 70%, but there's another trial which has shown that if you give half the dose of Astra vaccine as a first dose and second dose is given as a full dose, the efficacy goes above 90%. Now there's a difference between efficacy and effectiveness. So far, the majority of the trials have looked at the immunogenicity or formation of antibodies as a part of the efficacy. Only 2-3 trials have seen that actually whether it prevents infection. That way, the trial that I referred to is actually a glaring trial which tells us that it protects against COVID infection also. And this trial also said that not only that it protects against the infection, even if the infection occurs, it is not severe. So that there were 30 cases of severe infection in the placebo arm as compared to 0 in the vaccine arm. So to my mind, the efficacy of this trial, the COVID vaccine, is also not in question. Now the question of
what to take is my question actually. Compare the options before India are the Covishield and Covaxin. So which one are you happy with both? Are you apprehensive of either? Which one would you take?
The question is already answered by my colleague. Whichever is offered to me first, I'll take it. There is a reason for that. The experiments which were done in the animal studies, which I am privy to with the Covaxin, and it's a killed vaccine, which is actually time-honored safe vaccine, where the actually virus is not live, and it's absolutely safe. And in the monkey experiment, which was done, the immunogenicity was to the tune of 92 to 98%. So it is actually efficacy is not in doubt at all. And whether you say it's 70% or 60% and WHO has very clearly said that anything more than 50% is acceptable. And to my take is that Covaxin ultimately will be efficacious to the tune of 60 to 90%. That's what my scientific bent of mind said. So would be the Astra vaccine. So if I have both the vaccine on my platter and I am asked to take which one to take, I would say give me anyone. and I would be fine with that. Because the safety
Let's see what
and efficacy.
Dr. Kakkad has to say on that one. Dr. Kakkad, which of the two vaccines would you, and what are your first thoughts?
Yeah, that's very true. I think we should take the vaccine which is offered to us first, because, we know that, there are various terms which have been used here, but we need to first discuss about what is efficacy, what is immunogenicity, what is safety, because majority of people perhaps will not understand. So what efficacy basically means that there are two arms of the study when we give a vaccine. There is one arm which receives the vaccine, the other arm doesn't receive the vaccine. The arm which receives the vaccine, how many patients in those arms will finally get the disease per se, or would have COVID per se? So it's calculated on that proportion, and to know exactly what patient develop COVID in the vaccinated arm and non-vaccinated arm. That is the efficacy. Now to complicate the thing further, there's efficacy about getting just the COVID, which is mild COVID, and also COVID requiring hospitalization. So, if we talk about that, there is certain, the vaccines which have shown efficacy of close to 90%. That is that they develop, at least the antigenicity and immunogenicity, but they have mild COVID when, the vaccine is given. They don't require hospitalization. So these are very, things to be understood in medical terms. And also, when we talk about the side effect profile, also it's very important to see, because Sir was mentioning about the Moderna trial and also the Pfizer vaccine which has been given. But, if you see majority of the trials and also the AstraZeneca trial, which they've mentioned about, the side effect profile, few of the, the trials have used paracetamol as high as 4 grams per day to decrease the side effect profile. So, these are the soft things which only the medical person will understand. But I agree, whatever, vaccine is available, you should take it. And so that you develop antibodies and we can, at least develop a herd immunity.
One question, a layperson's question. What do you mean by one arm gets it and the other arm doesn't? What does that exactly mean?
So when you do a trial on vaccine, so people are, randomly divided into the two arms, two subgroups. So one group gets the vaccine and the other gets placebo. So that's what, we when we talk about this. And this is how, we know that the person who do not get the, the vaccine, how many side effects are happening in those, if they are developing the disease, what is happening. And it's a comparison between the two arms. So this is how the efficacy and the trials, they are normally, done.
One quick question also, after the vaccines, can a person, transmit COVID? You may not get it, but can you be a carrier?
Yeah, actually what they say that, even after the vaccine, you may be able to transmit, you may not be able to, get COVID. So that's also a possibility, but, the data on that is pretty low, but the people have talked about that possibility as such.
Dr. Tikku, you and I have had this conversation earlier, but I'd like you to recap again the difference between the spike protein and the mRNA vaccines. Everybody is, saying Pfizer and Moderna are more efficacious, or whatever the right word is, better than the Indian ones. Is it just that angsting for something that we don't get, or is there some rationale to it?
No, the mechanism is different. They use a genetic code, which is coated with lipid, and that's how it's transmitted. The mechanism is different. It's the first time an mRNA vaccine has been authorized for use, while as the spike protein is the conventional way of using vaccines, whether it's the inactivated virus or the viral vectors, is the mechanism which is different. And now the issue with the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines is basically a lot of allergic reactions. The virus, the genetic code is coated with the lipid, and that is basically polyethylene glycol, which is causing allergic reactions. So the mechanism is different. Here, the genetic code goes inside, it elicits an immune reaction. There, in AstraZeneca or the other vaccine, is the viral vector, which initiates the chimp adenovirus, which initiates the immune reaction. So the mechanisms are different. But efficacy depends on what you see in the trials. So the trials here have shown that it's 90-95% efficacious, Moderna and Pfizer, while as the trials in AstraZeneca showed that it was about 60 to 90%, average 70%. So it's the mechanism which is different. A lot of apprehension regarding mRNA vaccines because they've not been used ever in the past. It's the first time they're being used. So there were a lot of rumors floating around that it will affect the genetic system later on, but there's nothing like that. No data has shown that. So both the vaccines actually are efficacious, safe, and that's why they're being used in countries like US and UK. Until now, there have been no major safety concerns except, say, allergic reactions. Some people had Bell's palsy following the Pfizer vaccine, but that's one of those things which can happen to any vaccine. By and large, all these three vaccines which have been given approval are safe, efficacious, and they have good immunogenicity. And there should be no apprehension. I think there's a lot of misinformation about the vaccines, especially the ones which are being used in India. And there's an anti-vaccine lobby which sort of encourages people not to take the vaccine. I mean, there have to be awareness campaigns. People have to be taken into confidence. We have to make them understand what are the benefits of taking the vaccine, how it will help us in our fight against the COVID virus, which has created havoc in the last 1 year. It's been a terrible year. The only way we can get out of this is by reaching herd immunity. How does one reach herd immunity? Either you get the infection, which I think majority of the population anyway has got. But if we have a vaccine and we have two vaccines in place in our hand, then it will go a large way in reducing the transmission of infection and reaching finally herd immunity. We should be happy, excited. We should have faith, trust, confidence in the researchers, the scientists of our country, and we should applaud their effort instead of mocking their effort. And I think we should all encourage people to go and get vaccinated. That's what we need at this moment. And there's no reason for us to be so negative about the whole thing.
Take a short break and come back. In fact, that is one of the primary reasons for discussions like this, is to actually, we've got a panel of experts that are going to answer all your questions and apprehensions, and hopefully, bring them one step closer towards that vaccine. Well, we are here discussing the hottest topic of the year, of the last year also, the vaccination, the COVID vaccine. Dr. Khilnani, we've heard the concept of herd immunity. One is, of course, by taking the vaccine. And what about people who already had COVID? Would you tell them to take the vaccine, or will they be later on in the line?
So the recommendation is that, there are two things can be done. Either you test them for the antibodies, and if the antibody levels are sufficient, then you may not give them vaccine. But that's a very difficult thing because of the two reasons. One, that antibody tests are not standardized. There are various techniques which are used, like ELISA or chemilucent techniques. Chemilucent technique is not so widely available. And if you first start testing people for their antibodies and then think that they should be vaccinated, it's going to be a waste of time. That is one. Second is that we don't know how much the immunity lasts. So for instance, somebody has got a COVID 6 months back. His immunity may be waning by now. So therefore, it is logistically correct and also technically easy to vaccinate the whole population with it without bothering whether somebody has antibodies or somebody had asymptomatic infection, or if somebody has already infected. If at all, this person, if one person has already got infected and has got antibodies, his immunity, he will get the first dose as a booster dose. So what? So my take is that all the people in India, as planned, starting from the healthcare providers to frontline workers to elderly to those with comorbidities, should be vaccinated irrespective of the fact whether they have got COVID infection or not. Thank you.
Dr. Thakur, another, fallout of the, first I'd like to ask you to give you an update on the fact that has, COVID cases have been reduced. So are you more optimistic about in the way we've tackled COVID? Are cases actually less, or is it just something that we are being told in the media? And secondly, I was reading about, the impact of COVID. One of the after effects is that you're getting this mucormycosis. Which is a fungal disease which actually makes you go blind. And Gangaram Hospital, I think they had a few cases. So something about this, because this is something new.
Yeah, so the first thing, the cases are decreasing, definitely. And we've shut down few wards because, the COVID patients are not coming now. So we concentrated patients in just few of the wards which are almost full, the patients which we are taking care of. Yeah, and we've seen fungal infections like mucormycosis and the other infections also. So it's basically a type of a mold which normally people would have seen in the bread. When it gets rotten, it gets that kind of a fungus. So that's fungus which normally is there in the body, but due to low immunity, it gets activated and it gets into the sinuses of the nose and also in the eye, and it can spread to the brain also. We've got a couple of patients right now. Also, we've got almost about 5 patients admitted, which we are taking care of because of mucormycosis. And it's a relatively difficult to treat infection because you require a regular surgical debridement of that and also antifungals on long-term basis. So that's the thing which we are seeing. That's a rare, infection. But
what should patients watch out for to know whether they have this or not? What are the early symptoms?
So early symptoms would be nasal stuffiness, nasal discharge, nasal blockage, and bloody discharge, or black color discharge from the nose, those kind of things which are persisting. And, these patients can be easily, known because, these patients are recovering from COVID and they have a persistence of the symptoms which is coming. So that can be easily seen. And because of high index of suspicion, people do pick up these kind of patients very fast.
And I've got to, the UK strain is something I wanted your views on also, all of you. Dr. Kakkar, you first.
Yeah. So UK strain is a strain which is responsible for majority of the epidemic now there. And it said that almost close to 70% of the, 60 to 70% of the epidemic in UK is because of that strain. And there has been some mutation in the spike protein, which gets attached, that's the attachment site to the body. And there is a mutation there. And because of that, it is easily transmissible. Almost close to about 70% is increased chances that it can be transmitted to the other people. So that's the thing. So what we were worried about was that how do we pick it up? The test is the same, but we need to do gene sequencing to know exactly whether that strain is there in our population or is there or not. And like people are saying that, that strain was there in from September onwards, but we were not very vigilant, and the flights, from the UK were stopped only close to the Christmas. And perhaps it's there, but, the cases are now going to grow up, and we just need to pick them up and isolate them and do contact tracing for those patients.
How are you handling the UK cases, Dr. Tikku? They're not being kept with the regular COVID patients. They're being kept separately for one. And secondly, is it a milder infection? So people should not worry too much if they get it also?
See, over a period of time, because of mutations, the virus actually becomes weak, and that's what they say. And even with this particular mutation, it started with a few cases in Kent, and then in September, and then there were a few more cases in November, and ultimately there was a huge spike in December. And then London and Southeast England had a lot of cases of this particular strain. And that's when the travel restrictions started, the European countries, and then India, and finally so many countries. So see, the issue is it is 70% more transmissible, which is more infectious, but it does not increase the disease severity. Neither does it increase the mortality. So if you keep doing what you're doing, which is basically taking precautions, washing hands, wearing a mask, which is the most important thing, and maintaining distance, you will still not get it. So we have, I think, 71 cases of this particular mutant strain in India right now, and most of them are in institution isolation. And the contacts are being traced aggressively. Their families, the other contacts, they're being kept into quarantine, and they're keeping vigilant. We don't have to panic, but we have to be vigilant, because if this particular strain in India spreads, it will lead to another spike in cases. Right now, we are doing very well. We have less than 20,000 cases. In Delhi, we have less than 500 cases right now. And look at our mortality, less than 1.5%. And at this point, when we are doing so well, if there's a spike, another spike, it will be a big setback. So that's why we have to be very careful. But the positives are that it doesn't increase the mortality, it doesn't increase the severity. keep taking precautions. Even if it spreads to a little extent, we can still control it if we take precautions. So yes, we have to be vigilant, but I don't see too much of a problem happening because of this particular strain. It would have happened by now, but there is still time. Next 2 weeks, if we are through, then it's okay. I don't think we'll have a problem later on.
Dr. Khilnani, do you think the vaccines can handle the UK strain? That's what we are being told by Bharat Biotech. Especially.
So I couldn't be the best expert because virologists have answered, but I have interacted with them. Since majority of the vaccines have multiple targets, so one mutation in the spike protein will not make a difference, and it is believed, not evidence-based, but logically, scientifically, it is believed that vaccines will continue to be effective against this mutated strain. So we don't have to worry about that. Thank you.
On that very positive note, thank you all for joining us in this discussion. And of course, thank you all for watching. I hope we've been able to allay some of your apprehensions regarding the vaccinations. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.